and historian Robert Graziani. Robert, thanks so much for your time tonight. You've studied these international organisations and you recognise that there is a common thread working through all of them. I've just touched on 5. Tell us about your research in this space.
Well, it did start back really in the 1880s, and 3 weeks ago we did have a show on with you on international socialism, and really since then they've just found new ways in order to forward their agenda, which pretty well is centrally plan the world, and with them as elite controllers.
Yeah, it's a huge challenge, and one of the things I've noticed is that these bodies are set up. I think the credibility of many of them has been shredded, particularly by recent events, but they're still used by left-wing politicians, invariably the Green or even more left than them, if there is such a thing, by them as some authority to lecture us about what we should be doing, when in reality they ignore the economics of things, how capitalism has dragged more people into prosperity and out of poverty, and they seem to want to put us back into a road where we're all equally impoverished.
Well, it doesn't really, sovereignty of the individual and of nations and families and workplaces doesn't really play into their almost psychological/pathological need to control as much as they can. And look, they started off really with the Sierra Club maybe in the 1890s, and then the Club of Rome, and then the UN Environment Program, and then that was largely brought about from Paul Ehrlich's Population Bomb book and thesis. But then they found emissions and climate change in the 80s, and the Rio Summit in '92 really kicked off all these climate treaties, Kyoto and Paris, and whatever we'll be having soon, which has given them more and more justification, as they say, to control how we interact with the environment.
Yeah, it struck me as odd. I just gave those few examples there, but you go through the annual reports of any of these organisations, you look at their websites, and you do realise that all of them have claimed climate change as justification for their work. It's quite extraordinary, and it suggests that there is a coordinated approach to build a narrative which no one can dare criticise, lest they have to get past this wall of non-government organisations trying to socialise the world. Is that right?
Yes, they pretty well have owned the science since the 90s on this, and they've got their fingers in all the universities and meteorological organisations and so on like that. But also, what's a little bit sinister is since this COVID-19 pandemic, they haven't just talked about sustainability, which was the catchphrase of the noughties and the tweenies for the UN in particular, but now they've got public health, global public health, as an even more pressing need that is right in front of every one of us, and we all, it's on the tip of our tongues, and we fear it. And now they're actually making a link between the COVID-19 pandemic and a possible link back to a stressed world environment, and that if we don't mend our ways even quicker than what a Paris Climate Accord or whatever comes next would allow, then we might be in even bigger trouble.
Robert, you couldn't make this stuff up. They're trying to say that COVID-19 or coronavirus is a product of a stressed world due to climate change and humankind, but they won't sheet home the blame where it truly belongs, and that's in China. They gave them a virtual free pass on releasing coronavirus into the world, and even the intelligence services in the United States have billed the cat on that. How can we take these pious lecturers and the politicians who use their authority, how can we take any of them seriously?
Yeah, we just have to keep digging down into the science ourselves and try to avoid getting caught up in the agendas. The bridge, if you like, between climate change and public health is a new field, an interdisciplinary field called conservation medicine or ecological medicine. And one of the key perpetrators or experts in that is a guy called Peter Daszak, D-A-S-Z-A-K. He's head of Eco Health Alliance in New York City, and he was the only US citizen expert that was in the WHO inquiry team that inquired into the Wuhan COVID breakout. And he would have been one of the most influential people on that team. And also, though, he has a bit of an interesting past because him and Dr. Fauci back in 2015 were the ones that transferred, if you like, the Covid-19 gain of function research and other gain of function research that was deemed too dangerous for certain US P4 labs under the Obama administration. And rather than kiboshing it, him and Fauci were successful in transferring it across to the Wuhan Institute of Virology, a P4 lab, the only one in China. And so,
let me get this straight. So you're saying that an investigator into the Wuhan lab leak, or the start of the coronavirus, was someone who was instrumental in transferring research that was deemed too dangerous for the United States institutions into China so they could research it.
Correct, and ensuring that some US government funding of the tune of at least 3.7 million continued to go there to further this gain of function research, which gain of function basically, you know probably what that does, but basically it accelerates what may happen in nature over 1,000 years, accelerating it down to 5 years or so.
It's just extraordinary. The more you tug at the thread, the more it becomes untangled, and of course we start to see the cracks and flaws in what we're being told. It is vital that we have people like you, Robert, to continue to research, to tell us what is going on, and I promise you that I will continue to prosecute this, and we'll have you on whenever we can to expose the real agenda. Because quite frankly, I think it's important that people own some stuff and have some autonomy, and don't just get swallowed up into the socialist sinkhole that we call the International Non-Government Organisation. Robert Graziani, thanks for your time.
Cheers, Corey. All the best.